Installing a solar system on a container is easy. In this video, I'm going to give you very thorough yet simple instructions on how you can install a solar system on your container to run your RV. We got 10 panels. Right now there's 2 on the roof already, but we got 10 panels laid out, and this is how they're going to be configured on this system. So you can see each panel just plugs into the other panel. It's real simple and easy. You know, they just plug to each other. You can't go wrong there. This is called a series connected solar array. So these are all in series, and we're going to have off of this end that's going to be, you know, coming on the roof there. This end, there's going to be one wire coming off of this end, and the far end down there, there's going to be one wire coming off of that end, and those will come down and into the inverter, and we'll have them all screwed on the rooftop, and I'll show you up there kind of how we put the roof on and how we screw these to the roof of a container in a really simple, easy way to do it. So we'll go into the inverter now and show you that. So these are the inverters we're using, and we needed 240 volts. That's why we're using 2 of these inverters. These inverters can be parallel. And we have our AC in and out coming in through this line. We have the black and the white are going out to the generator plug. The red and the green would be our line and neutral that are going to one of the phases in our breaker panel, and these come down and go out to our breaker panel that's outside. So then this inverter does the same thing. We have our black, which is going to be the other line. It's going to be the other leg of our 240 volt, and then the neutral that goes to our generator. And then the same, we got, you know, red that goes to one of the legs of our split phase panel, and the neutral is going to be the green, and that goes to the other, and the grounds will run separate. These are the wires we decided to use. You don't have to use this type of wire, but 10 gauge would be the minimum that you would want to use on these 5 kilowatt inverters. And then these right here are the solar input. So the solar array that comes down, one of the wires goes into one, and the other wire goes into the other. And you have to put the positive into the positive one, and the negative into the negative one from the solar array. And so that's going to go into one of these. And then we're not even going to use the charge controller on the other inverter, so they can expand the solar on this setup in the future through that. So then our batteries that we're using, these are 48 volt inverters, so we need 48 volt battery. That's why we're using 2 24 volt batteries. And you can buy lithium batteries from Amazon. They're a dime a dozen. So this is the 24 volt battery. This is the 24 volt battery. Series connected here makes it a 48 volt battery. So we got our main negative and our main positive for our 48 volt bank. And then we got another 48 volt bank down here. We'll do the same thing. There will be a series connected wire here, and then these will just parallel in with that. So we'll make these we'll make these cables, these battery cables, and we'll show you how to do this in the video. These will just connect this to this, so the negative to the negative to parallel them, and then the negative, the positive, up to the positive for the other jumper there. And so we'll show you kind of how to do that. But now we'll show you out at the breaker panel, kind of how it's all going to come out of these and go into the breaker panel, and what's going to go to the generator. So we'll show you that. So this is our breaker panel we're using, and this is the breaker that we're going to use. And so I'll go over that maybe later, but we have our 2 lines that come out to our generator. Across these 2, it will be 240 volts that we need to put in here to the generator. These will be neutrals. So you have the hots and you have the neutrals, and that's how that comes out of the inverter from the way I described it inside. These are going to be the 2 hots from one inverter, the other inverter, and they will be set up to be split phase, 240 volts. Each one will be 110 volts. So I'll get 110 volts from here to here, 110 volts from here to the neutrals. That's kind of how that works, but I'll get 240 volts across these two wires. So these will go into there, to these two lugs, and then the neutrals will come up to the neutral bus bar there, and then these will just go out to a generator. They'll be wired into a generator plug so they can plug it into the generator. And this just clips in. So this will clip into here, and they'll run their outputs, you know, put their plug for their RV, and what other circuits they want to run to their output. So they have a kill switch and they can turn things on and off themselves with a breaker. And so that will run out, and we'll pop that out and have a plug on it for their RV. And you can see the RVs that they're gonna run. Are they gonna run all of these RVs off of this one system? Absolutely not, but it's a start. And these inverters could technically run probably a couple of these RVs, but the solar is not enough to run that many RVs. So, all right, now we're on top of the container. We drill holes through the container at the beginning and the end of each board. These are redwood boards. We put redwoods on top because they will last longer than a common pine. We got those ones attached, and you could see as we keep going here, we drill holes right here, and then we silicone the hole, and then we flip the board over. Then we put a screw through the hole into the board from the bottom like this, with somebody standing on top. Now to the solar panels, just like I showed you below, you got one wire coming out of one side. That's the negative. They connect in the middle, easy. And then you got one wire coming off of the other side. That one's the positive. The screws we use are these long screws with a big head. You need to use a 3 1/8 inch screw because otherwise they're too long. Then we put the screw between them with the drill like this, and it cinches them down to the wood. Piece of cake. Once we make a MC4 connector on the end of this wire, these will go together, and then we stretch the wire all the way down to the inverter side, drill a hole, pop it into the container. When we're making the MC4 connector ends, these are what they look like. You can find them on Amazon. They make crimps that are actually for this. So if you're ordering them, order the crimps also. I'm just using some crimps that I have. So you strip the end of the wire, and then you stick that piece in, and you fold the tabs over. If you're using the right crimps, you don't got to fold them over. You just crimp it and it folds them over when you do that. But you crimp that on there. You stick it in the MC4 connector end like this. You can leave that backside on, stick it in till it clicks. And once you've done that, you can then just tighten that waterproof nut on the end that helps hold the MC4 connector on there also. So then this will plug into the end of the solar array. We got our solar wires ran in. We got one side, and then we got the other side. Don't know which is which right now, but I'll show you how we figure that out. But the thing I like to do while the sun is still out, we got a teeny bit of sun left. I like to touch them together just so you can see that we got connection all the way through on all the plugs. Sometimes those plugs, they don't go together good, or they're old and corroded or something, or you yanked on one, and if there's a bad connection somewhere along the line on the solar run, it would not do this at all. You would have no power. So that's a good sign that we have power. Then we just take our voltage meter and we test the polarity before we shove them into the inverter, because you got to put positive to positive, negative to negative, and you can see that indicated right here on the inverter. We have our white going into the positive, and it's kind of behind the wire, the labeling, and then our black goes into the negative, and so we'll check that all up, and then we'll plug these together. If you've ran your solar wires in and you didn't keep track of them as you came in, you got to check the polarity. So I got my voltage meter here. Let me turn the light on, and you can see if I hook this to here, we have 392 volts, and it's reading negative. So you can see it's negative 392 volts, which means since I have this negative probe on here, that means this is positive. And so if I switch them and put the positive probe on here and go up here, it's not reading negative anymore. So this one is my negative and this one is my positive. And so I'll hook this in, I'll hook this positive one in to my positive lead on my inverter. And those will go together and voila. The batteries, we're hooking in the batteries, we have to hook these splicers in because we need to come out of one set of batteries or out of the batteries and go to two inverters. So the splicer lets us go to this inverter and over to this inverter with the battery cabling. So that's what these splices are for. You can just buy these at Lowe's. Real simple, they're just lugs. And with this size wiring, you need to buy the biggest ones you can. They're like $8 each or something. So then we just hook this down to the positive side of our battery. This is our positive battery. And always like quadruple check, make sure. So when I touch this to the battery, you're gonna notice it's gonna spark really good. So that's normal. It's gonna do that all the time when you're hooking an inverter in because the capacitors in the inverter are filling and they fill very fast. So I'm just gonna hook this in, and then this other one I'm hooking in is just our jumper that jumps down to our other battery set and parallels these. So that's what this goes to down here. We'll just do that, and then those are parallel. So that's the battery cabling. Simplified. Cool. So I'm going to show you how to do the battery cabling. It's pretty simple. You just get the battery lugs and you put the lug on there, and then you can get a crimper. You can buy these at Harbor Freight, and it's just a hydraulic crimper. So you just put the battery cabling in there, and you just need to tighten it down. And so then it crimps the battery lug onto the wire nice and tight. Show you how to do it with the hammer. So first thing you have to do though is cut it to length, and you got to strip the wire off. Put it on. And they're good. And then you just mash it.
Old-fashioned crimp.
That is the old-fashioned way to crimp, yeah, or the caveman style. So this is the breaker we're using. It's a Simmons breaker because this is a Simmons box. You typically have to kind of match them so they go well together. And now that we have our wires in, we got our line from one inverter, our line from the other inverter, and our neutrals are just going into the neutral bus bar. These are for our generator. So we just put this in here. Hopefully these aren't in our way too much. And shove it down. Oh, ooh. Well, that was easy. So, and then it's in there like that. Piece of cake. All right, we got it all wired in. Our generator plug coming in, tied into line 1, line 2 back there. And then the neutrals from the inverters are tied to this, which is tied to the neutral on the generator plug. The ground plug is unused. So when you're wiring an RV, you get a plug like this, and you get a 10-3 wire from Lowe's also. You can typically find these with extension cords. They already have the plug ends on them. You can buy them that way, but we only needed one of these ends, so I just bought the box to make a box with a cord on it, and I'm going to use the other half of this cord for the generator plug. This is the generator plug we need for that inverter setup. We need 240 volts to go into those inverters. So we need a line 1 and a line 2, and I'll show you how we hook that in. When wiring in a plug, the typical rule of thumb is the hot is going to go to the bronze screw, and the neutral goes to the white screw, and then of course the green, the ground, and the green goes to the green screw. And so that's how that's going to work, just pretty much on any plugs. We're not using the ground Grounding on these systems is quite a bit different than normal, so we can forego the ground. We're going to use the white and black for the lines, and then we'll use the ground for the neutral. And so how do we wire that into this plug? Same thing. For the lines, the hot ones, the lines are the hot ones. We go into these gold lugs that are opposite from each other. This top lug will be the neutral. The bottom lug will be the ground. And so that's how you wire that in for the generator plug. So that'll go on here, and then I'll cut this cord in half, and half will be used for that. Other half will be used for the generator. If you don't know what you're doing, grounding an off-grid system, you can create a ground loop, which can cause problems. So this is how it's all wired in, and nice snug fit. We ran 10 gauge wire over to each one of these. We're gonna probably take those out and put a 240 volt plug in there later. So this is the final piece of the puzzle before we flip the inverters on. Right now they're all tied in and everything. We need to get the two inverters talking to each other so that we can set the settings and the phases synchronize, and you get 240 volts across both of them, but 110 volts off of each one. So you plug these into each other. You just find the serial plug on the bottom, the right one, and so we just stick that in there like that. And then we do the same. We kind of run over here and put this into the one here. You can't do this wrong. These are just like the panels. It has a male and female, and there's more because you can parallel more. I think you can do up to 12 of these together. So then this other wire is another one. This helps them talk to each other, so they share the same amount of current off of the batteries. So then they just plug together like this. Just like that. And then they can be turned on. And the settings, I'll show you the settings that you have to change. Okay, so after you parallel them together, you need to go into the settings and get them talking to each other. So we find our manual that it comes with. We go to setting number 31, and we're going to go down to, let's find setting first. So we'll go to 31. You scroll through the menu, and the menu's numbers change. So we find 31, and it's on SIG by default. We want to switch it to, we want to switch this inverter to P2P0, and we'll set that one. So that'll be the phase number 1. And you'll notice once we do that, it throws this other one into a fault because this one's settings are wrong. They're talking to each other and they know the settings are wrong. So we got to go to setting 31. And we need to go to 2P0. Okay, so putting this one on 2P2 sets the phases 180 degrees off. And if I change this to 2P1, they're only 120 degrees off. And what that means is across line 1 and line 2, when they're 120 degrees off, we have 208 volts. When I switch it to 2P2, from line here to line here, we have 240 volts. So it's either 3-phase or the 240 volt split phase. And so, and it tells you all of that on this setting 31 menu. So you go in there, and if this doesn't make any sense to you, hopefully my explanation did in the video. So now that they're synchronized, they're operating. So the orange light has came on, which means they're inverting on both of them, and they don't have a fault anymore. And so that's that. And from there, we also, one of the things you definitely want to do is go into these and you go to setting number 8 and it's already set. So yeah, this is already set. So this was set to lithium and these are 16, with these batteries, they're gonna be 16, LFP 16. So make sure you get the right settings on your battery. All you gotta do when they're synchronized, change the setting on one and the setting changes on the other one. So I wouldn't have to do that. They're gonna both be on the right setting, so cool. All right. Final overview of how this system works. It's all plugged in and running. Got inverter 1 and inverter 2 with them talking, hooked to each other with the batteries. Got the MC4 connectors on the solar wiring that comes in. Silicone the wires. Got the panels up on top. Breaker panel, RV plug, and then generator plug with 2 separate 20 amp circuits. Hope this video was a help to you. It was honestly harder trying to make the video and explain it to you in a simple way than it was installing this system. So if it helped you, please like and subscribe.